in math that, thousands of students took. The comment was made criticizing my teaching that just because we don't understand, if you talk louder and write bigger, it doesn't make us learn any better. That stuck with me because I thought they were right. That was exactly what I was doing. So I would have to constantly come up with a different way of presenting what to these students in particular, for entering freshmen at Ohio State, was particularly difficult material. And math was not something they liked or wanted to do. So I have to constantly go back and find out, how can I make this more interesting? How can I get through? And I found that by letting them explain it to each other, getting someone who knew what they were doing, having a student explain it, that drawing on the students who understood to explain to those who didn't understand, they often could see and hear what I couldn't see and hear.
Was that a teaching technique you've continued to use?
Yes, and really developed it completely with these teachers who are going to be teachers, students are going to be teachers, because we wanted them to experience learning mathematics the way we wanted them to teach it, so that we were teaching them how to teach by doing it, by setting an example. And I'm always amazed at what, and maybe that shows my arrogance, but I am always amazed at what the students have taught me. I generally leave a term feeling I've learned more than they have in many cases. Particularly in using the calculators and the computers, they've also showed me ways to use them. I mean, that's a technical aspect of it, but it's helped us get away from busy work and drudgery into what's really going on in a problem, instead of just the hard part of it.
What changes have you seen in students you've been working with over the years?
Well, they haven't gotten any older. They seem younger, but they're still 18. I still have a lot of respect for the older students, particularly in engineering technology. I taught a number of students who were not traditional 18-year-olds, but had come in as older students. And I'm always amazed, and I'm still amazed at how they can balance family, work, job, going to school, and the pressures of going to school. As far as the traditional students, I think they still come with a lot of life that I love, and fun that they bring to a classroom. But I also think they come now with parents. I've never dealt with parents before in teaching, and now I get phone calls from parents wanting to know how Joe or Mary are doing. And as a parent, I appreciate their concern. I've also had parents complain about how I graded or how I did things, and I have real difficulties with that. I keep wondering what Joe and Mary are going to do when they go out on a job, but, And I've always tried to teach, particularly when I was in engineering technology, more so than in the math department. I tried to treat my classes and my students as if they were on the job, that if they were with General Motors, they would have a sick leave policy, but that didn't mean they could take off because they just didn't want to come in that day. It meant that was for when they were sick, and that this was their job. And I expected them not to ask me how much credit they were going to get, but to say, do you mind if I use the lab over lunchtime so I can work on that oil you were interested in? Because if there was a bonus, they'd find out at the end of the year. And if they weren't, they'd find out they didn't have a job. So they really needed to treat going to school as if it was a job, and that they needed to develop that type of response to what I was asking them to do.
In your experience, it ties into the next question, in your experience, what is the best way for faculty to reach the students who are at UD? what are some of the best ways you found to reach them and help their learning, help them develop?
I think you have to walk into that classroom even if you are afraid of them, and I have walked in thinking, oh my God, who have I got this term? You first of all have to walk in with love for them, but a sense of respect for them. They are human beings. They are adults. They have minds. Ask them to use them. Let them use them, okay? I find that hard. I'm a parent. I want them to do what I tell them to do. But they have to use their minds and encourage them to use them. Now, to me, this sounds like it might be easier if I was teaching creative writing or something where I wanted discussions. When you're doing differential equations, it's like, I don't want a discussion. However, there is, and even in basic calculus class, ask them how they think about something. I think that's critical. Let them, participate. And I realize you have to say, okay, this is nice, but these are the rules. You're going to have to learn them. I still make my students do tests without calculators. I make them memorize. I make them do all that hard work because I think it's necessary. And but I think you have to give them the chance to be an adult and to respect them for being who they are.
You talked earlier about community and the role of collegiality. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? How important is collegiality and the kind of community when it comes to becoming and developing as a teacher here at UD?
Since most of my development here at UD was in engineering technology, and I would have to say that you couldn't have asked for a better teaching situation